I should probably cut more lights on, but I'm going to go ahead and wait for a few of you to get on here because there's sort of a lot to talk about. And I'm actually live. So there is something that I want to show you guys. I'm looking for it. Okay. Hey. Hey, Carla. Hey, Asami. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Ethel. Hey, Louise. Hey, Lady Amnesty. Hey, Susan. Hey, Pam. Hey, Sarita. Hey, Macy. Hey, Joy. Evil. Crystal. Okay, so there is a article that's in KY3. Okay, before I go there, I will say, Ivory and I discovered some stuff. We'll speak about it later on live, and we'll go from there, right? But this I want to show you guys in particular because this is concerning directly Nicholas GODEJOHN and his appeals. And a lot of you have been asking like about updates about it and like, you know, what has happened with any of his appeals, like why has it been denied? Like, are there like any real answers or anything like that? And hey Wendy, hey Janine, hey Nab, hey Mighty. Yeah, honestly, the show is really nothing to talk about. Gypsy's show is like not good at all. So it's like, what is there really to say? That's like, I'm not trying to be rude. Let's just like be honest, right? It's a snooze fest. If we're really being honest with ourselves, right? It's a snooze fest. And okay, before I go into this, let me cut more lights on because I feel like I look really dark. Hold on 1 second. Okay. I also want to tell you guys my opinion on what I think they're trying to do with the show. Hold on. I think that the show is setting Ken up and trying to, I don't think necessarily make Gypsy look amazing, but to try to make her look better, like again, to be the victim. And I think like later on in the season, like you'll see where she's constantly playing victim and they might like highlight that aspect of it, right? That's my personal opinion. I feel like the whole thing is staged, but I'm not going to say much on this. I'm just going to tell you guys what I've seen. Ivory and I were doing some deep diving on a couple of things. And what I found very interesting is Mike Stanfield does not seem to have money at all. Ivory sent me some things about him and his wife, and I thought it was very interesting because it just appears as if he's a very low budget attorney. Not saying he hasn't worked hard. I just feel like it hasn't like panned out for him. He was also allegedly a public defender for over 16 years. That's not normal. Okay. Like most public defenders are not public defenders that long. Public defenders generally have a high turnover rate. even in smaller cities or anything like that, that is not common to see a public defender for that long. Thank you, Mighty. With someone being a public defender that long, in my opinion, that would just indicate that they weren't really that great at what they did. I did see that he like won his first bench trial on his own like a year or two ago, allegedly. So that is something interesting to note. Okay. Um, so just on a basis of kind of like, I'm telling you surface level what I've seen, because I will, and I will go into it in more detail at another time, like today. But he's doesn't seem to be making a lot of money. Well, Jen, $5,000 for an attorney, that is not a lot of money. Like for your average, and I don't even think for your average person that's a lot of money anymore when you think about it, because if that's like all you're making, like, I don't know about y'all, but most people's mortgages are at least, especially if they bought recently, right? At least 2,000 minimum. Most people 2,500, right? Well, depending on where you live. Okay. Daycare, if you have kids, after school care, car notes, like when you when you add, yeah, when you have a family, that's $5,000 wouldn't be able to pay my bills. Um Hell, Geo's daycare is alone is close to $1,500 a month. Like and that's just daycare. You know, my daughter's in like programs, and like my mortgage, my water, my lights, my that, and I think it really does have a lot to do with what, yeah, insurance too, taxes. And I think it has a lot to do with where you live. To really be honest, like if you live in a bigger city, like you just, oh, you know, just when I think about groceries. Okay, let's just talk about groceries. Just groceries by themselves, right? Like he has a family, he has kids in college. Like I think it just doesn't like pan out, and it kind of makes sense as to why I feel like he's kind of been like a fame chaser with Gypsy, allegedly. Um, I it kind of, I mean, you can't call him a bum. He's an attorney, right? Like he went to school. He did. You can't. I think that's not really fair. Like, I mean, and we could say that he ain't really that great, right? But I don't. I think, let's be fair. Um, but I just, when you look at everything, it kind of makes sense. Okay, so I do want to just say that. Now, her show, I think, was supposed to be everybody's cash cow. And I think, considering seeing how everything's played out and the ratings have dropped significantly. I mean, when someone sent me the ratings, and they have a couple of things working against them. Okay. If we're really going to be real, people's main source of entertainment right now is not TV, right? So they already have that working against her. And the show is just that TV is not, the main thing. A lot of people are live streaming the show, and if they weren't live streaming it, they wouldn't watch it. So that's kind of what that is. Thank you, Rachel. Lifetime is not, I don't feel like that was the correct company or channel to air Gypsy show on. I think she would have did better on MTV or VH1, but I also think neither one of those stations would have wanted to co-sign to have her on them. Right? Yeah, the demographics that watches Lifetime is not the demographics that follows her on TikTok. So those are already the odds that she has against her. I think they thought because when she first came out, she did have a lot of attention. People would be open to watching Lifetime. And Lifetime is not streamed on YouTube TV. A lot of like Gen Zs and younger have YouTube TV, and that's what they're watching TV on. And so the fact that Lifetime's not on there, that's like something going against them too. So like when you look at it, it's not just the fact that her show sucks. It's also all the nuances around the show coming out, when it came out, the demographics, the channel that it's on. It's a multitude of things, and the odds are really kind of stacked against her. So the less and less interested people get is the less and less people are willing to really make sure that they're watching Lifetime. Not only that, when you think about it, no matter what they show us, we've also seen a lot of this all play out on social media, right? That's all another thing working against her. Gypsy can't shut her mouth. And she's very impulsive, and obviously a lot of that plays into it as well. So, yes, but Lifetime is owned by Disney. Y'all, there's so much more to this that's going to tie everything together, that's going to blow your mind. But I'm going to wait for Ivory. Okay. There is some stuff that's really going to have your brain looking crazy. But I'm going to wait on Ivory. Okay. So let's just say like that, and it being on Disney is really, when you really think about how mortifying that is, but also, are we surprised? Disney hasn't been the most ethical, right? Disney doesn't do things that I feel like is ethically not frowned upon. I can't be the only one. Yeah, they're definitely going to be blown away. Like, it's so big. When I say like crack the code, like really, like this is all gonna make sense to y'all. Y'all gonna be like, what? Like, it's nuts. Y'all will find out in the morning. Well, I'll post everything together, but I'm gonna do it with Ivory. So that's the thing. I just want to give. I want, like, Ivory. We were both digging. I feel like she did a little more digging than I did. I'm gonna be honest. Well, no, we were digging together, but she found more because I was looking in the opposite direction, if that makes sense. But I feel like she definitely deserves a lot of credit for it, so I don't want to take that from her. Like, I feel like Ivory, like she's the GOAT, and she deserves her flowers. Okay, so I'm not gonna be that person. But it's crazy. It's crazy. Hey, thank you, y'all. She, not right now. We're gonna do a live later, and then I'll post it on here, and you guys will be able to watch it premiere tomorrow with me. Yeah, I really love Ivory, and I love the fact that we could have a difference in opinion, and like we just laugh it off at the end of the day, and we're able to keep it moving. And she always gives me food for thought. So I love the fact that the banter is not like a toxic type of energy. I love that about her. But I do want to go over this. And I'm going to focus on this right now because I think there's a lot of things playing into this Nicholas Godejohn case, right? And I think there's a lot of things that it seems like things aren't being done, but there are. And there's so much that will make this make so much sense. And when you know what you're up against, you kind of know how to fight it, if that makes sense. And oh, I want to shout out Indigo. You guys need to go check her page out. She did a video on Melissa Moore. And before I go over this, I do want to say this with I think had this Gypsy had went to trial, she would have been found guilty and a lot would have came out. Oh, hey, I didn't know she was on here. But I think because the situation is so complex and there's so many moving parts that, oh, thank you. You know what? I forgot when you were saying I love your shirt, I forgot what I put it on. So I thought it's funny. Thank you. There's so many moving parts that if it had went to trial, she would have been found guilty. I think she would have gotten a penalty or life without parole. But it's way more than that now. The stuff we found out, mind blown. Okay. But I think the issue is because it's so complex and there's so many extra things that there's certain things that the courts would not have realized, right? Like, for instance, Demona being a Disney character that ended up playing in that had a lot to do with BDSM and unaliving people and like using jabbers, and like those are things that they would not have looked in to understand how deep this is, right? And also to realize, like, they would have realized how diabolic she was just by, like, you know, the age of 6, that she was like being dishonest. So seeing stuff like that, I think they would have visibly seen that, but all like the back things that she was doing, like selling her poutine, they would not have. I just blocked them. We don't, that type of energy we don't do. I don't think they would have seen that. Okay. Now I feel like to really understand what took place, you really have to understand all of the moving parts. And I feel like the reason why so many creators working together is so helpful is that it's different perspectives and everybody thinks differently, and they're able to see things that the other person wouldn't see it, and then collectively come together and put the puzzle together, right? And like being able to read someone's body language, I think in this is very imperative because you can see the red flags, right? Whereas if you just look at Gypsy for face value, you only see this small petite girl with this squeaky voice and you think she's sweet. She does have demonic eyes to me, but I think that when you hear her and see her stature, you you don't perceive her as a threat, right? And again, I really want to emphasize that this whole thing is deep rooted in sexism and patriarchy to me, this whole case, right? Just simply because if this was a man, if Gypsy was a man, he would be serving life. Period. Period. Okay, if Gypsy was a man, that man would not be walking the street. Even with the fact that I know Case showed you guys, because he sent it to me as well, about someone defending her with speaking on giving up her child when the child turns 12 or 13, right? And people are like, oh, well, you know, it doesn't matter. She said that years ago. But when you really think about it, if your boyfriend or husband, you found out that he did that or wrote something like that, would you not feel like your child is unsafe? So if you'd feel like that about a spouse that's a male, why wouldn't you feel like that about a woman? Like why is it different because she's a woman? That's the sexism, right? And I think to really understand this whole thing, you really have to understand how deep rooted it is in sexism and patriarchy. Because if you don't understand that, you really don't understand what's happening and you're going to miss it again. And if it wasn't that, you're missing it. Like if you don't see it, you're missing it. Okay. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I misread that. Wait, yeah, okay. So there's that. And when you guys see all the moving parts behind it, when Ivory and I break this down to you, this is going to make so much more sense to you. And you're going to understand the players and how all of this tied together. Okay. I honestly feel, in my opinion, Mike Stanfield was not, like, didn't set this all up. Like, he doesn't appear to have those types of connection. When you guys realize who did have the connections, y'all are going to lose your head. Okay. So that's the main thing that I feel like you have to really pay attention with this, is just the fact that it's a lot of sexism and that there's so many things moving on. But Indigo is so impactful because you're able to see the body language. You're able to understand like the shifting eyes, the keys that you should be looking for. And I think it makes it a little bit easier to understand what's really happening. And not only is like, okay, that means that the person's lying, but it means it's more to it than just them lying. There's more, whether they're uncomfortable or shameful or like all of those things I think are really important. So go follow Indigo because she's a gem. Also go follow Ivory. I feel like a lot of people are not following Ivory, and Ivory's content is really good. Like the way she lays things out, she's very, yes, Indigo, her aggressions, it's very subtle. And it's, yes, I am so with that. But go follow Ivory here on YouTube. I'll put her in the description after this, but definitely go follow Ivory. So that's that. That's why I wanted to really like say, like, the body language makes such a huge difference. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that. Yeah, well, Gypsy does speak. Now, you're right. She does speak about her crime with no accountability, but I think more so she disassociates herself. Like in her mind, she wasn't part of that crime and she shouldn't be tied in. And the reason why I say that is I feel like she feels like that, and also a lot of her stands. And oh, perfect. Thank you. Let me pin this. And then I'll pin Ivory in a little bit. I feel like also her stands disassociate her from the crime as well. The reason why I say I feel like they disassociate her and her is because a lot of them say, well, why wouldn't she have custody of her child? the woman committed matricide. There should be no other, like, I can't comprehend why that doesn't click. Does that make sense? Matricide is like the worst of the worst unalivings. That's your biological mom, and that is insane. For you to even be able to do that to your biological mom is, I've heard things allegedly, Rachel. I don't know for sure. I don't have like 100%, and that's why I say alleged. But I've heard things. Okay. Gypsy disassociates herself from her crime because even she acts as though she doesn't understand why people judge her, right? She doesn't understand why people feel like she's wrong because she disassociates herself from the crime. She does not see herself as a criminal. She does not see herself as a murderer. She doesn't see herself as any of that. Okay, so that's for starters. Like, she doesn't take accountability because she disassociates herself. She can't take accountability because in her mind she was not the criminal. She has convinced herself that she was the victim. And you can see that in different scenarios that she speaks on in different interviews. Because I don't know if you guys remember, there was an interview where she said, people want the perfect victim. And people get mad at me, but they should have been really mad at the perpetrator. Okay. She was saying she wasn't the perfect victim. Her mom was the perpetrator. Okay. Then she goes on 60 Minutes and says she's both the victim and the perpetrator. And I feel like she said that because she felt like she had to put that out there because of people. Right? So when you just look at it, she just has disassociated herself from the crime, period. That's just end of story. And because of that, things are so much worse. Stanfield, I don't know if I could say she was coached by Stanfield because Gypsy has been a liar since 6 years old. So, well, before that, she was probably born a liar, right? But she admitted that she lied to her mom at 6 years old when the feeling came back to her legs that she couldn't walk. Like, Gypsy literally said, nah, I just want to stay in this wheelchair so you could just push me the hell around. At 6 years old, for you to be that diabolical instead of saying, well, you know what? I'd rather walk because I could play sports. I'd rather walk because I could actually hang out with my friends. I'd rather walk because there's so many things I could do. No, I'd rather not walk and sit on my ass on a wheelchair and lie. Like, if that doesn't tell you someone that literally wants a free ride, no pun intended, I don't know what else will. Okay. Stanfield knows Gypsy is a bad person. He does. But Stanfield said he's going to get the bag and he doesn't care. That's just my opinion. Okay. That's alleged. Now, I want to go through this with you guys really quick. Yeah, literally a free ride. Like, so Greene County judge decides a motion in Nicholas GODEJOHN's attempt for a new trial. Okay, so now this was August 11th of 2022. The Wisconsin man serving a life sentence for killing a Springfield woman back in Greene County courtroom. Nicholas GODEJOHN was convicted of first-degree murder for jabbing Dee Dee in 2015. He is serving a life in prison without parole, plus 25 years for the armed criminal action. Okay. Now, The attorneys for GODEJOHN are asking Greene County Judge David Jones to set aside his 2018 murder conviction based on the poor representation. Okay. Now, just for the people that are like just now tapping in that haven't been watching these lives, I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis of the jury pool and kind of the things that happened. Hey, Heather. The juries, 2 days before Nicholas GODEJOHN went to trial, Mommy Dead and Dearest was released on HBO. Dan Patterson, Mike Stanfield, and some others were on Mommy Dead and Dearest. They walked through Gypsy's life, including the crime. And they villainized Nick and Dee Dee to no end. Okay. Now, keep in mind, there was also news that was out there, right? The jury had said, like, I believe 3 of the juries said that they were privy to what was going on. They had information. They already made up their mind, but they allowed them to sit on a trial and still be juries. Yes, tonight. Okay. That's for starters. Okay. They did not allow his public defender to bring in the video of Gypsy instructing Nicholas GODEJOHN on how to jab Dee Dee and where to do it at. Like, as in the location, as in the room, any of that, okay? They did not allow the autism expert or the doctor that had expertise with autism to speak in the trial. Okay. So a lot of the proof that they had to back things up, they did not allow into the court. Okay. The judge that sat on this trial was Judge David Jones. Okay. Judge David Jones took over this case right before the trial. There was another judge, Judge Holden, that was supposed to sit in on this trial. When Judge Holden was supposed to sit in on this trial, Nicholas GODEJOHN requested a trial by judge. When Judge Holden recused himself, and I want to note that he recused himself where neither party requested for him to recuse himself off the trial. This was his own personal decision. I want to note that, okay? Then Judge David Jones took over this case, okay? Now, when I looked up Judge David Jones, there's also a petition out there trying to get him impeached. And it's very interesting what they're trying to have him impeached for. Basically not following through with, they're alleging that he hasn't followed through with the law. He doesn't make the citizens feel safe. He lets real criminals get away. And he doesn't hold the criminal activity accountable, the people doing the criminal activity accountable. And the people of Springfield or Greene County don't feel safe around him. Okay. That's Judge David Jones. That's the one that made the decision on Nicholas GODEJOHN's, that sat in on Nicholas GODEJOHN's trial. Okay. Now, what I think is interesting is when he took over the case, Nicholas GODEJOHN then requested a trial by jury. Okay. So that means that they knew his name is Judge David Jones out of Greene County. Okay. So that means Nicholas Godejohn's attorney knew that David Jones wasn't going to give him a fair trial, and that he had more of a hope with the jury. Because what changed his mind from a trial by judge to a jury trial? Okay, there was something, and the fact that they changed the judge, or the judge recused himself and he stepped in, that to me is very telling. Okay, that's worth noting. Okay, so all of this came into play. Not much evidence of anything for Nicholas Godejohn was able to be brought in, including the abuse he suffered as a child, including, his past relationships. Like, there was a lot that they did not allow to come into the courtroom. Now, with that being said, this now is KY3 speaking on the appeal that was filed for a new, not an appeal, it was filed, I guess an appeal, an attempt for a new trial, okay? Now, in this new trial, they were able to, in this appeal for a new trial, or request for a new trial, they were able to present all of the evidence, or some or most, that they wouldn't allow to be brought into the actual trial. So that means the judge was able to physically review this. Okay. So it says that there was online communication secretly for 3 years before Nicholas Godejohn came to Springfield at her request. Okay. The police arrested them at Godejohn's home a few days after the unaliving. In court, Gypsy said she planned her mother's murder. She also considered poison, arson, and a gun. I want to read that again. Gypsy said she planned her mom's murder. She had also considered poison, arson, and a gun. Okay. I really want you guys to let that sink in. Gypsy said that. Not anybody else. That's not hearsay. That's not he said, she said. That's not anything else other than she said it out of her mouth. And had she had went to trial, that alone would, she's guilty of first degree. Okay. Let's just put that there. Day 2 of Nicholas Godejohn's appeal hearing. The state has no evidence to present. Okay. The judge tells the defense that they have 45 days from today to file their suggestions for the outcome of this case. The state then has 15 days to file its suggestions, and each side will have a chance to rebuttal the other's filings. Okay. Now keep in mind, the request for a retrial went before the same judge, Judge David Jones. Okay. So, you should always file the appeals, and, see what happens. But I think the thing to me about the court system that I've never liked is that a judge sitting on the trial or a case or even family law, I think that if they've done something that was unethical and you're requesting, or what you feel is unethical, or you didn't get a fair trial, it should be another judge hearing the appeals hearing. I don't think it should be the same judge, because that's like me stealing out of your house and then telling you I'm going back to your house to help you look for it after I already put it in my house, and I'm going back to your house to help you look for it. Yeah, no, I don't see anything. It doesn't make sense. So and me personally, I think that there should be a law where it needs to be a fresh set of eyes on it. It shouldn't be that same judge. Okay. Or even if it was another county, I feel like if an appeal like that happened, I think maybe another judge in another venue should be able to look at it and say, okay, something's not right with this. Okay. But nobody has a fighting chance if it's the same judge that sat on the bench for this trial appealing it. It's not realistic. It's not that his lawyers were. I'm going to say this with the information that I'm privy to now. There was so much going on behind the scenes that locks everybody in together that there was literally nothing that he can do. And when you guys find this out, you'll really understand where I'm coming from. Okay. So I don't think it has anything to do with being incompetent. I think when you know that the odds are stacked against you, you have to think these are people that will make a heavy impact on your career. Okay. There is going to be he's not on the bench right now. I believe he retired last year. But it's not something that it could work out that way. Your life heavily relies on the people in that courtroom because you're a public defender. If you don't move in the direction that they want you to move, could be failed. Okay. Like it could be detrimental to your career. Okay. And although Nicholas, Godejohn, and Gypsy are a case that a lot of us really care about, when you think about the amount of cases public defenders have with hundreds of cases just like this, like, let's be real, hundreds of cases just like this. Like, really let that sink in, right? Like, that is something that I feel like everybody should really think of. Two, this is not a exclusive case. This is, these public defenders have plenty of cases and they're probably reviewing the case right before court. Okay. They'll speak to their client a couple of times, but it's, their tax dollars are paying for it. Okay. And that's the reality of the whole situation. So that is something that I feel like people really need to think about. He's not like a sole case by itself. It's multiple cases that these public defenders have, and their careers heavily rely on how they work with the court system, right? And to really be 100% honest with you, I think public defenders should be paid through by like some sort of nonprofit not affiliated with the government. Okay. Or some type of separate entity from the courts, because they all work together, right? So that person's career should not be impacted by the people in that courtroom. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like getting high on your own supply. And I feel like that's kind of like how public defenders really work. They're also overworked and underpaid. Okay. And with any job that you're overworked and underpaid, it's just another case of the same thing. Okay. Like, you become desensitized to what's happening because you deal with this day in and day out. So yeah, Nicholas is and Gypsy, it's a unique case, but at the same time, they have a lot of cases like this with people facing major time and stuff like that. So it's something that's really, like, we really have to think of. But the video of Gypsy as Ruby was played in the courtroom in this appeal. Okay. I want to say that again. The video of Gypsy as Ruby was played in the courtroom. The video where she said, "Are you a psychopath?" That video. Okay. Where she describes herself as evil, the evil side of Gypsy, and she's calling Nicholas Godejohn her match. She's describing all the ways that they can be bad and commit crimes together. Perry is asked if he's familiar with that video. He said he is. Perry is asked if he played the video for the jury to show Gypsy manipulated Godejohn. He said that he didn't, but says the video does show that and that it should have been played. Perry is asked about the mental examination being conducted and admitted. Prosecutor Dan Patterson asked Perry about testimony given by the medical expert. He also asked about a plea deals extended to Godejohn. Patterson asked about the evidence against both Gypsy and Godejohn, with Gypsy being the mastermind. Perry agrees. The judge asks about Gypsy being called as a witness against Godejohn. He states that she testified that the murder was her idea, and Godejohn did what she asked. Okay. She testified that. He states that she testified that the murder was her idea. That is so important. And that he did what she asked. So if you ask me, I think the person that is delegating is always the bigger problem. That's like finding the kingpin in a drug organization. Okay. The defense asked about Gypsy's cooperation with Perry. Perry is asked if the murder was planned. It may not mean that Godejohn contemplated it. He contemplated it and was cool with it. But through the lens of an autistic person, things are different. Perry agrees. Perry states that the defendant is entitled to competent counsel at all times. Okay. Now, the public defender, Dwayne Perry, is called to the stand. I don't know if this is the public defender that sat on his trial. I don't believe that. Oh, it had to be because he did. That's interesting. That is interesting. Now, this is another really important part. He asked him if he understood that HBO is not a local TV station, and if he understands that the defendant understands the weight of his crime that he committed. He said yes. So the fact that Dan Patterson asked the public defender if he understood that HBO isn't a local TV station is interesting, considering that he was on it. How are you cross-examining someone about something that you actually participated in? Like, let that sink in. How? You participated in this, and you are asking if they are aware. Like, what is happening? Okay, make that make sense. Exactly, Brittany. Make it make sense. He asked if he was aware of any deals for a plea made by Nicholas Godejohn, and that Nicholas Godejohn denied them all. Let's be clear. Every one of the plea deals that were offered to him was life, just spelt differently. Okay. And Patterson states that the initial strategy was a bench trial before Judge Calvin Holden. Godejohn waived a jury trial. This is where I was telling you guys this. Okay. Holden recused himself. Godejohn withdrew his request for a bench trial. As soon as he recused himself, he withdrew that request. Okay. That should tell you everything that you need to know. So a lot of the stuff that they're saying doesn't really make sense because she already said she planned it. Like she had considered other options. So even if Nick wasn't in the picture, it would have been done anyway. And she might have done it herself. Like, to me, that is clear. Okay. Now, Perry played a clip from Gypsy's phone of her walking around Dee Dee's bed and making jabbing motions. No, Becky. The only thing that I was able to find about why the judge recused himself stated that neither parties requested for him to recuse himself. He recused himself on his own. Okay, so it was a personal thing. I believe, and I don't know, this is alleged, this is just my opinion only, I believe he recused himself because of the fact that they likely wanted him to do something unethical. That's just my opinion. Okay. I may be wrong. I don't know. That is just my opinion. It just makes the most sense. Right? Because why would he recuse himself right before it goes to trial? And also keep in mind, right before it went to trial, HBO released Mommy, Dead, and Dearest. That may have been it too. The fact that Mommy, Dead, and Dearest was being released and he knew that it was unethical. They maybe had a conversation and he just was like, yeah, no. I am just going to say this, and this is alleged, okay? But based off of what I have seen, Dan Patterson has way more to do with this than y'all think, okay? And that's just that. So that clip was shown to the judge and Dan Patterson. But let's be clear, I'm sure Dan Patterson saw this already before this, okay? Which is why it wasn't able to be admissible in court, okay? Now, they gave the judge and the public, the judge and the DA, a copy of a report made about a forensic exam of Gypsy's cell phone. Oh, damn. It states that there was 2 items of interest. The first photos and videos of walking through the murder, including Gypsy making jabbing motions. The second item shows pictures and videos of Dee Dee's room, including other walkthroughs of the murder about a month before it happened. The report states that it appears to be documentation showing Godejohn what to do to execute the murder, produced by Gypsy prior to the murder. Okay. They asked if that was presented as evidence during the trial, and he said no. Okay. Now, the second clip shown from the 2020 programs of Gypsy's Truth and Lies. It shows Godejohn checking into a hotel. Gypsy is interviewed saying she took medication to calm herself down before the murder. Godejohn is seen describing the murder to an investigator. Gypsy interview states that she wanted to stop the murder but was too scared. We know that's a lie. Okay. The video shows because she was the one who planned it, got everything, showed how it should have been executed. So all of a sudden she was too scared. She took something to stop it, but she didn't actually take something. Which one is it, right? He said that, so describing it, the interview scared, the video shows that, okay. The video shows that they checked into a hotel. And Med says that he would be concerned if a potential juror were to see it. It would sway their opinion. It questioned why he didn't question the potential jury about the media coverage they saw prior to being seated on the panel. He said that he didn't have a reason why he didn't ask them. You're telling me one of the biggest cases happening at that moment was set for trial. You had jurors. This HBO show aired 2 days before it, and you still did not ask? Okay. Okay. Now, a fifth clip is shown from the program Gypsy's Revenge. Okay. Gypsy is seen talking about Godejohn, telling her that he would do anything to protect her. She asked if he would murder her mother. He said yes. The video switches to Godejohn's Greene County jail interview, and he states that Gypsy made it clear that she couldn't be with Godejohn if Dee Dee was alive. She stated that they had to get rid of her, and that was Gypsy's only option. He then says that he would be concerned if a potential jury had saw that footage because it doesn't allow them to make their own impartial decision about the case. I hope y'all really heard that. How is the facts not allowing them to make their own impartial decision? Okay. Now the fourth clip is shown. Oh no. Okay. The fourth clip is shown from the program Gypsy's Revenge. Gypsy's account of the murder. She said she wanted to stop it, but she wasn't able to, and she asked about his concerns, and he stated that the clip mitigates Gypsy's role in the unaliving. So Okay, so the third clip of Mommy Dead and Dearest is played, and it shows prosecutor Dan Patterson interviewed. So they're saying there was a concern about potential jurors seeing that. He said he's not sure. So Dan Patterson said that even though he was interviewed on the HBO Mommy Dead and Dearest, he didn't think about whether there should be a concern for a potential juror seeing that he's unsure about it. Okay. Okay. Him showing up on the HBO show, he said he's not sure if it would have been an issue for the jury. The DA. Thank you. The DA states this in front of the judge, David Jones. Let that sink in. Now, he asked about Nick's desire to grape Dee Dee Blanchard, and he said it didn't occur to him. But we also saw that that wasn't true, and that was based off of what Gypsy said in the breakdown. But Dan Patterson is asking this, okay? There was another clip of Mommy Dead and Dearest that played out, and it shows Gypsy talking about her relationship with GODEJOHN. She states that their relationship got weird, and that GODEJOHN started talking about BDSM, and she said she didn't know about it. Gypsy said she did not know about BDSM. You can't tell me that that picture or several pictures of Gypsy didn't indicate that she already knew. That girl was not new to it. She was true to it. Okay. Period. That's just so weird. Especially because of that Ruby video and the Demona videos and they had exactly Indigo. No, I don't know if I would have had an easier time with that, considering she had that shed that looked like she was into like child play kind of thing. The credits at the end, I feel like there's too many things that showed that yes, I actually think that Gypsy was into BDSM probably along the ages of like 11 or 12. Okay, maybe even younger than that. Because why did she have that toddler bed? Why did she have all of that stuff in a shed in her 20s? It wasn't like she was maybe 16 and she would put her baby dolls out there in the shed to sleep. Now we're talking about a 20-something-year-old woman. Okay. Now, so Nicholas GODEJOHN had 2 public defenders during his murder trial. He said that he didn't have a role in hiring or screening experts for criminal proceedings, but worked with them. Particularly Dr. Frank. Dwayne Perry, the lead attorney, questioned him. He said Dr. Franks was hired to determine if Nicholas GODEJOHN was competent to stand trial, and Dr. Franks diagnosed GODEJOHN as being on the autism spectrum. States the theory of defense for GODEJOHN'S case in the murder second degree based on diminished capacity, and the defense didn't hire a neuropathologist to evaluate GODEJOHN. He said it didn't occur to him until after trial, and that they were satisfied with Dr. Frank's assessment. Now, here's what I will say with that. The fact that he was collecting permanent disability should have indicated that they should have had one. Because when you're, like, if you don't feel like you need that, at what point would you feel like someone going into court would need it? If you didn't feel like he was competent enough to work a job, why would you feel like he was competent enough to withstand trial? Like, that should be a real question. Like, I don't feel like they made enough of heavy enough point of that. No, so here's the thing, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. Pops and Sassy. So she says, Nina, this makes me curious. How around 11 would she learn about that? I'd be curious as to their cable package. However, her disorder probably made her more curious to seek out information. I'm reading this for the playback, the replay. So this has been something that I've been struggling with, and Ivory has had to repeat this to me over and over and over again for me to really understand. For her to be that manipulative at 6 years old, she was born knowing how to manipulate and get what she wants. She is not like your average 6-year-old. She was not like your average 10-year-old. She was diabolic. She still is. We can see it now. She's only mastered it now, right? Like, I think it's safe for us to say that. Yes, psychopaths and sociopaths and people with those types of issues, their brain is very different. So we can't really understand it. Like, it's not, because we aren't that way, it's very hard to grasp it. Yes, I have heard about the inappropriate pictures that was sent to Rod, and the conversation between Dee Dee and Christy and all of that. Yeah. So I think it's very interesting that they didn't feel like they needed a neuro to have any say on this. I just think that that's really odd, because I feel like that was needed, considering he was collecting a permanent disability check. I feel like all the experts that they possibly could have had, they should have had there. And maybe one of those experts would have said, you know, I don't think he should be able, he shouldn't, he's not capable of withstanding trial. Okay. So that's that. I honestly think Gypsy probably always had like a daddy fetish kind of thing, which is why she sent those pictures to Rod. I think that those pictures were intentional and not by mistake, like they were trying to say. I think that that has been a fetish, part of like her BDSM fetish that she's always had. That's just my opinion. It may or may not be right. But I just feel like that is just part of her, because she's also like in, it seems as if she's heavily into incest, and a lot of people aren't even realizing that, because there's so many things going on, that there's so many very important things going on that people are kind of like not able to remember and grasp everything, because she's so complex and the situation is so complex. Oh wow. um so I think that's crazy about them not bringing that into Nick's trial. That's just so weird to me. We were up late last night looking into something so crazy. So we didn't end up going, we were supposed to go live, and right before we were going well, we were speaking earlier, and there was stuff we ended up finding, and we thought that we were just going to go live and worry about the rest later. But then we ended up finding more stuff that it was just a lot. It was a lot. That's why I said when we do, y'all will be like, wow, like this is all nuts. Um, this is just crazy when you look through this. This is an article. I'm also going to actually put this article in the description so you guys could read over this article later. Okay, so the defense attorney, Jen Young, is asking the court to admit 104 photos into evidence. Prosecutor Dan Patterson does not object, but does make a note that the dates of the images cannot be confirmed. Young is also asking to admit local news articles into evidence, as well as the articles and videos and local television stations and copies of the HBO Mommy Dead and Dearest. What was that? Okay. The first witness that was called was Stacy Sullivan. I think that's the lady who, oh no, that's the counselor at the Waukesha County Jail. Okay. Ooh, this is interesting. Sullivan reads the evaluation record from the court. It indicates that he was diagnosed with having autism and Asperger's. Isn't Asperger's autism, but autism isn't? I don't know. I guess I don't know that much. She screened him for his mental state upon entering the jail to decide if he needs treatment from a psychiatrist or any other care. Sullivan confirms that he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 15 and heard voices. The record states that GODEJOHN was receiving federal benefits for his illness. Sullivan continues to say that GODEJOHN had thoughts of suicide. He tells Sullivan that he is only worried about his girlfriend, Gypsy Blanchard, at the time of his arrest. Sullivan documented that he was nervous at the time of the evaluation because this was his first time in jail. She says that he was relieved to hear about the jail process, but he was more worried about Gypsy and how she was being treated, and he was tearful. Sullivan says that Godejohn was vulnerable and said that there was a concern about him being around other inmates. She was concerned about him being around other inmates. Sullivan, the counselor at Waukesha County Jail, was concerned because she felt he was vulnerable. Okay. This was said in front of the judge, in front of Dan Patterson and everybody else sitting at this appeal hearing. Amongst all the other information that was presented. Okay. That is really important to note. Okay. After the initial evaluation, Sullivan continued to evaluate Godejohn 3 additional times until he was moved about a month later. So he stayed in Waukesha County Jail for about 30 days. Her notes indicated that patient is asked about adjustment. He replies that he mostly does crossword puzzles and sleeps to cope. That is definitely a sign of someone that is depressed. He states that he continues to worry about Gypsy. It makes him uneasy, and he says that during the additional visits, Godejohn lacks emotion. Okay. Now, one thing that I do want to say about this is Waukesha County Jail was in Wisconsin, where he was from. So I feel as though this counselor was non-biased. So she basically only spoke on what she saw, okay? Because this was not in Missouri. And this is when he first got there, okay? He says that he is coping better at times. He prays, he takes care of himself, and visits with family before being moved to Missouri. Sullivan is asked about her opinion about how Godejohn is coping. She says overall the mental health unit was best for him. He wasn't concerned about his charges, but he was more worried about Gypsy. I really want you guys to really think about the fact that he was not concerned about his charges. He was more concerned about Gypsy. That's because he didn't understand the severity of his charges. That's what it boils down to. He understood the treatment that he received in jail. So he was relating that to Gypsy and being fearful of if Gypsy was okay. But he was not concerned about his charges because he did not realize how severe his charges were. Okay. The judge sat and heard this. The DA sat and heard this at that time. We also saw in the interrogation that he was very concerned. So you're talking about even after the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days, moving 30 days, this whole time he was still concerned about Gypsy and how she was being treated and if she was okay. Okay. Sullivan states that she wasn't contacted by any investigators or Godejohn's attorney. Now, I think that that's really important because they never reached out to anyone about Nicholas Godejohn. Jesse, yes. It was imperative that he stayed concerned about Gypsy so he wouldn't try to change his testimony. You hit the nail on the head about that. Yes, Nab, that is really important because 17 jab wounds is definitely a crime of passion. Nicholas had no reason to have that much passion, which is why I don't understand as to why they even think that this could make sense by any stretch of the imagination. That's very odd to me. Um, Prosecutor Dan Patterson questioned Stacey Sullivan. He asked about the notes on her records indicating that Godejohn does not appear to have any mental issues or needs at that time of the initial evaluation. His speech was clear and oriented to person, place, and time. Behavior calm, appearance clean, and he thought the process within normal limits. A few days later, he was evaluated again with the same findings. Same notes were made during the last visit with Sullivan. Patterson says the only reason he did what he did was to be with his girlfriend. Is listed multiple. Nick says that, and it's stated multiple times in his evaluation reports. Defense asked more questions. She asked about the notes indicating Godejohn's mood. Sullivan states that he is depressed. Patterson states if all inmates say that they're depressed when they go to jail, Sullivan says, and she says yes. The witness was excused. I want you guys to realize how general he just made that. Okay. And the reason why I say that is Patterson asked if all inmates say that they're depressed when they go to jail. Are all inmates collecting a permanent disability check? So how can you say that? Far worse than the toothbrush. Um, so the defense calls Paul Curry Godejohn's uncle, Godejohn's mother and brother. He states that Stephanie Curry passed away June of 2021. He states that he lived with his sister and Godejohn when he was a baby. Defense asked if he knew if there was any complication with Godejohn's birth. Prosecution objects. It's sustained. Defense asked if Godejohn looked normal as a child. Prosecutor objects. States that Curry is not a doctor and that his appearance as a child is not relevant at the time of the crime, the crime was committed. The defense attorney states that Curry's opinion is relevant and that a doctor would have asked those things. Curry states that Godejohn was different from other kids. His thought process wasn't as developed as normal children do. He is asked about Robert Godejohn, Nicholas's father, and Stephanie Curry's relationship. The prosecutor argues that the line of questioning is not relevant. The judge allows the testimony of Curry's interaction with Godejohn over the years. He states that his nephew didn't know how to relate to people and lacked communication skills. Curry states that on one occasion he was bullied but didn't realize it because he lacked the ability to comprehend what was going on. He further states that he witnessed Godejohn often talking to himself. He wasn't cared for or taught his basic hygiene, which is kind of interesting because at the time he was 26, it kind of really makes you wonder. But I know that they say that his mom really, and I guess his dad didn't really either, um, tried to get additional like state assistance to kind of like help him. So I think because they didn't do that, he didn't really kind of, he struggled with like repetition and kind of like learning how to function. Um, because I feel like, and I don't know, because again, I don't have a child with autism. I don't have autism, so I can't speak on, but basically, based on the fact that Gypsy was constantly sending him videos and stuff like that for him to learn how to do things or even how to play this additional character, if I think if that same effort was put into and repetition of him like taking care of himself and kind of like functioning, he probably would have done much better because it would have been repetition and the consistency that could have made a difference. So maybe if there was like additional services that he had prior to Gypsy, maybe some things could have been different. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert on anyone with autism. I'm just basing that based off of the way Gypsy manipulated him and what she used and how she used it and how it worked. So it's just pure speculation. No, Gypsy was definitely, Dee Dee was definitely not overbearing. Indigo, I agree with you. And Jesse, he was groomed. And I feel like he could have been groomed in a positive way as well, right? She couldn't have been controlling because, thank you, Cloud9. First of all, where'd she get the wigs? Where did she get the lingerie? How did she have that shed in the backyard? How was she able to actually go mail Nicholas Godejohn money on more than one occasion? How was she able to go see Dan? How was she able to, like, how was she able to do any of that? And there also is a part in the interrogation, and it's kind of in the beginning of when the detective is sitting down with her, when he asks her about if she had a phone or like how did they communicate, and she said she didn't have a phone or she didn't have a laptop, but then she wasn't allowed to use the internet because her mom thought there was dangerous people. But then she turned around and said that she used her mom's laptop to communicate with Nicholas Godejohn, and that she found him on the internet and was using the mom's laptop. So how does it go to you're not allowed to use Wi-Fi, you don't use the computer because you don't have one, to, oh, but I use my mom's computer, that's how I found it. And I don't know if you guys remember, that was the point where he said, like, you have to be truthful, you have to be honest. And I don't think she realized that he knew at that time that he knew that she was lying. I think she was moving so fast that she didn't even really catch that. Like, she was so busy just continuously lying that she didn't realize any of that. Right. That's another thing. If her mom was that controlling, how would she have been able to make over 100 videos? And it's well over 100 videos. Thanks for joining. Hey, from Ireland. I think that is really, really, really interesting. So basically, at the end of this, the judge says that they didn't present anything that would warrant a retrial. With all of what I just told you, the judge says they didn't present anything that would warrant a retrial. And that is what I mean by, it's like me stealing something out of your house and going back to your house after I took it home to help you find it. With everything that was not brought into court, that was shown here, as in the judge actually saw it with his own 2 eyes. With that being said, he still said, there wasn't anything that she showed me that I think would have made a difference in this trial. Now, when y'all find out everything behind the scenes, how the oil is running in the behind the scenes, y'all will now, that will make more sense to you. I think that it's just crazy. It's a very crazy situation. I do think there was a third person present that night as well, Glitter. But I don't think it was Dan. And I think Dan had very little to do with this because of the fact that Dan didn't even want to see her after, when she reached out to see him. Which is why, if you realize that interview, that whatever journalist interviewed Nick, he said specifically she did this for an infatuation that she had with someone. Nick knew at that moment it wasn't him. That's why he said an infatuation. And I believe Nick knew that it was Dan. I believe he knows that now. But who knows? Jenna, I don't know, because I really don't know how, if somebody programmed you for 3 years, think about it this way. For a normal person, I think they say you do something 21 days straight, it's now habit. So, no, I don't think Rod had anything to do with this. I don't think that. But just think about, for 2.5, 3 years, someone training you. I think that, he is probably used to having this second alter ego. And he really hasn't probably gotten much assistance being in prison. Like, prison is not really for rehabilitation. I know that that's what we're told, at least not here in America. I think that there's other places that they do have like rehabilitation for prison, but I just don't feel as though it is here, and I definitely don't think he is probably in the ideal situation that he can thrive. Period. That's what it boils down to. So And that's, for starters, even if Nicholas didn't go to prison, he could not be on his own. Period. He couldn't. He would need to be in a facility. Someone would have to be like a group home or something where he had some sort of assistance, because he himself cannot, like that. And that's the thing that I really feel like is crazy, because the fact that he couldn't be on his own, and it's been very clear, his mom has said it plenty of times, you know, even his family members, cousins, whatever, have all stated like he was not functional to be on his own. I just can't understand like why. Hold on a second. Oh, that's bothering me. My kids be coming in here tearing stuff up. Squirrel brain. Sorry, y'all. I have squirrel brain. I don't understand, because I feel like if you know he needed assistance, he couldn't be on his own. You let the girl off that manipulated him and essentially can get out of prison and manipulate more people. Misbehaving. You already know I got squirrel brain. Like, that's why I don't have too much in front of me ever, because I get distracted too quick. Like, something could just like throw me off just that quick. Ooh, and I forgot to take my ADHD medication today. So I'm actually doing really well. Oh no, I did take it. I did take it. I'm lying. I'm lying. I did take it. Yeah. It's so funny having ADHD, because when you realize those things, you realize that there's people that don't lose focus that quick. And you just wonder, like, I wonder what that's like. Like, must be nice. Man, that's the thing. The hardest thing about having ADHD is remembering to take your meds on God. That's why you're like, how do you guys become drug addicts? I can't even take my ADHD medication consistently on time. What? How do you do it? That's so funny that you say that, because that's always a thought to me. Is like, did I take my meds? Like, and if I don't, the people around me or people that know me knows, like they know. But you know what does help me, and I should go get it, but I didn't actually have it today, and I normally would do that on live, but I noticed that people were complaining about me chewing gum. So there is a neurodivergent gum for people with like ADHD, autism, like anything, that it really helps. Like, it has worked miracles for me. And I don't know if you guys noticed that on my lives, like when I do chew that gum, it helps me a lot. So if I could chew it right now and only chew it for like 15 minutes, and it'll work for about 6-7 hours. I got mine on TikTok Shop. I don't know. Let me go get it and show you what it looks like. So I originally got it in like, it was a box of like 6 of these. And it worked so well that I ended up getting a package. And this has 90, this has 9, but it came with 6. So, or 5 maybe, packs of 9. But it's worked wonders. And I noticed that if I give it to Melania before she has like cheer practice or like hip hop, like if she's been at school all day and I give it to her, like it helps so much. But I promise you, it's been a lifesaver. Like a lifesaver. So there's 0 sugars. It's gluten-free, it's vegan, it's natural caffeine, vitamin B6 and vitamin 12 and L-theanine. But it works really, really well. And this is what the pack looks like. This is the one with 90, and then it's like 6 of these, but I was giving them to I was having some and my daughter was having some. So this 6 or 5 packs of 9 like lasted us like a month and maybe and a half. So I ended up just getting this. It's called the Neuro Energy and Focus Gum. I'm sure they have a website, but I bought mine off TikTok Shop, and I know that they're on sale on TikTok Shop, but I know not all of you guys have TikTok Shop. So I don't know if it's actually on here though. Let me look. If it does, I will tag it in this video, but I don't really know if it does, or I'll tag it in my last video, but I will look for you guys. Hold on, let me check. But it's a lifesaver. Oh, good. Yeah, it's a lifesaver. And it has really, really, really helped me. Oh, if they sell it on Walmart, I probably could add it to my thing. Let me see. Oh, wow. They do. Hold on, I might be able to add it to this. Are you guys able to see it? I don't know if she started Ozempic, because in her pictures of herself, okay, hold on.